Welcome to Great Life Coaching. This is Dragon 6 Golf here. I have another video review of a Jocko podcast with Echo Charles. Today's video is called, it's podcast number 319 for him. Shut Up and Return Fire with Admiral Thomas Richards, nicknamed the Hulk. So I've never heard of this guy before, but he sounds like he's a legend in the SEAL teams, and he supports all special operations from Air Force, Navy, Marines, and Army. He's definitely a team guy. He's Team US for sure. He's a Vietnam veteran, so he's about my dad's age, and he's talking about his experience about his time in Vietnam as a SEAL, as a young ensign, and then all the way up through his rank as an admiral. So about 2 hours and 14 minutes into this video, it really caught my eye in my ear because he talks about PTSD, or he likes to drop the disorder and call it PTS. So before I get into it, let's go ahead and hear what the Hulk has to say.
Let me talk about something people call PTSD. And I won't use some of my terminology on your podcast, but we need to lose the D. Let's just go back to my day in the rice paddy in January of 71. I got Don Futrell with a bullet hole in his chest. I got Grant Telfer shot in both legs. I got Jim Rowland with a bullet hole in his chest and his groin. My hand is, looks like kind of, raw hamburger, left in a pile of juice. I'm not ever going to unsee that. I'll say that I don't mind, and I really don't, because we had signed up to do that. That's what we're there for. But people today are coming back from wars, and they're seeing far worse. They're seeing roadside IEDs, supposedly impenetrable, armored vehicles, ripped apart like a beer can, and the parts of the people inside of that they try to drag to safety if they happen to be a survivor, and they just watch bleed out. Or the corpsmen that have to deal with that on a daily basis. You cannot unsee any of that. It's not going to go away. You look at our first responders of today. You got a knife fight. You got a gunfight. You've got a fire at a house. You've got a gas explosion. What do those people see? They see fellow members of their township or whatever their association is in parts. Blood everywhere. Sometimes human forms irrecognizable, if there is such a term. You're never going to unsee those things. So let's not talk about post-traumatic stress as a disorder. If you don't have some thoughts, some concerns, if you didn't wish your fellow American wasn't such a jackass at times that causes kind of hate, discontent, pain, and misery on other people, if you didn't have some form of thought process of, regret that these things happen, wish they didn't happen, wish that you didn't happen to see it, if you didn't have those kinds of thoughts, that's the disorder. I tell my wife that I don't have any post-traumatic stress. I don't have any flashbacks. You can call me a lying mother, but there are things. We were standing outside a dinner theater shortly after I came back from Vietnam. Car backfired. Jackie looked. Where am I? I'm on the ground. I'm looking for what the problem is, where it came from, what do I need to do about it. I wouldn't call that post-traumatic stress. I'd say that's good training. But as we look at all these individuals who come back from these situations, and I want to include the first responders who face these things every day. As we look at these people, we need to understand We will never understand some of the things that they cannot unsee. But we need to understand that they have been in those situations. And we have put them there. We, the American people, sent Jocko and myself, the rest of us, to various places around the world we never could find on the map before we went there, to do things, to try to support people in democratic pursuits, and shit happens. And it's not pretty, but yet we do that to the youth of America time and time again. So we need to understand that this post-traumatic stress exists. It's not a disorder, and we need to make sure that we address it.
He had a eloquent way of putting his experience into play and adding, first responders in there. I think is smart too, because honestly, first responders, they see a lot of stuff too. Okay, story time. So my wife and I, we've both been deployed to Iraq in different years. I think my wife went in 2009. I was there from 03, 04 time frame. We're getting ready to go somewhere. It's just us, and we're getting in the vehicle, and our neighbor across the street has a trailer with the truck and trailer, and he drops the ramp, and it just boom hits the ground. We didn't even look at each other. First thing we did is get in the vehicle and then started looking at our surroundings. Just like he said, it's good training, but that's post-traumatic stress. And I agree with him that PTSD, that disorder, is for people in car accidents, stuff like that. I'm not degrading that. I'm just saying there's a difference between the stress and trauma we see overseas in the theater of war versus being stateside and seeing trauma here. So let's dissect PTS, post-traumatic stress. Post means after, right? Traumatic, that's trauma. And stress, there's nothing like being in a heightened state of anxiety for about 6 months to a year. That's what it's like. I mean, constantly think you could die, or worse, your buddy could die. And then when you do see the mangled bodies and blood and stuff, like he said, that doesn't leave you. And like he said, the government and our people ask young men and women to go overseas and do these things in the name of democracy. But we go over there not knowing exactly why we went, but we come back knowing why we went. And that's because we respect those next to us. So this is a contrast of the SEAL Andy Stump that I had talked about in the last video, saying that he doesn't recognize PTSD and thinks we should just shake it off. Here you have Admiral disagree, because he deals with it still, sounds like, and he knows that we all do. He says even now it's worse. So much respect to the Hulk. I don't know what else to say about this. We still have 22 veterans dying a day by suicide. We still have a VA system that's just throwing therapy and medications at PTS. And I have experience in that. So what they do, just to let you know, it's easy to get an appointment, right? But I remember in Colorado when I went to go see a counselor, a therapist, they in that hour you have to talk. You talk with the therapist first, and then you go see a nurse practitioner, and you kind of tell them again what you talked about, and from there they prescribe you meds, and they want to see you like every month to make sure the meds are working or whatever. It's just strange because you can get meds on your first visit, and then you go through the hallway and you pick up the week supply, and then the rest will be in the mail. It's kind of crazy. And I think therapy works, and I think therapy mixed with meds works. But the bad thing about medication, that plateaus, and what that means is you start on a low dosage. You start on like 12 and a half. After 6 months, it doesn't work the same, so you go to 25. after 6 months doesn't work the same, so they just keep increasing it, or they change medications on you, and the side effects could be who knows what. So, and then most times people don't even stick with therapy because partly is the relationship you have with your therapist is important. And I can remember my therapist, she was a nice lady, however, she didn't serve in the military. She had empathy, but she really couldn't understand. And that makes a difference. Same thing with a nurse practitioner. She was awesome. They're all awesome people, but they couldn't relate. And because of that, I never trusted them. And then I don't understand why you go to therapy and you gotta dig deep and you talk about your situation. It's an emotional. Then you go see a nurse practitioner and they want to know the same thing. That just dynamic just doesn't work. I don't know if they're still doing that way, but VA need to update that. So as a therapist myself, there's something called countertransference, and that's when if you have things in if you're the therapist and you have things in your life that's going on that you haven't worked or dealt with, first time you see a client with that same or similar issue, their problems become your problems and your problems become their problems. You just gonna go back and forth and nothing's ever gonna get done. So as a therapist struggling with PTSD, I can't really talk to veterans in a therapy way about the trauma they experience overseas. But what I can do, especially in the group session, is just talk about our problems, talk about our experiences. And that is very therapeutic in itself, but it also allows me to be able to dive deep with them, not have to worry. Therapy is not about fixing people, but I don't have to worry about digging deeper because I want to stay shallow because I don't want to dig deep in myself later on. So, the Hulk, Jocko, Echo, I appreciate everything you do. Thanks for watching this. This is Great Life Coaching, Dragon 6 Golf.